Welcome to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting important events, interesting people, and key issues in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. There's an ongoing battle being fought in the state of Indiana. Some feel the war is creating improvements to K-12 educational system, while others say that we are slowly destroying public education. Although the bloody, emotionally charged struggles are being waged by adults, the eventual casualties or victors will be our children. Let's talk to two educational leaders who can help us understand what is happening. Meet George Letz, who is the superintendent for the Metropolitan School District of Boone Township, and Ed Schoenfeld, who is the executive director for the Northwest Indiana Educational Service Center. You know, I really checked you guys out earlier, and I don't see blood on either one of your clothing. So,
the last few years, I'm surprised we don't have blood on our clothing.
So maybe it's just under the jackets. That's why you wear jackets to hide the scars.
I think leaders are just really agile in education today.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
They just got to move around so you actually avoid the blood splatters.
Absolutely.
So, I always love giving your long school district title, but you basically are Hebron, right?
Basically, Hebron, Boone Township.
Okay, so down there.
Yes.
And Ed, you're originally from here, but
Correct.
you really kind of did a superintendency and some educational leadership
In Missouri, yes.
Okay, or as we sometimes say in Missouri, Missouri.
Or Missouri.
Sometimes it feels like misery here, I
Yes,
think.
you bet.
But you're back here in educational leadership with the Service Center now,
Yes,
right?
you bet.
And you work with all the school districts.
Yes, we work with 24 schools, corporations across the Lakeshore region.
Okay. And George, you're like on the brink of retiring, like this close?
Yes, I will be done in August of this year after 45 years in education, starting out as a teacher, principal, assistant superintendent, and superintendent in 2 different school districts.
How long have you been at Boone Township then?
13 years.
13 years. And before that, you were what?
At Hanover.
In Hanover?
Hanover Community School Corporation.
Okay. For all the rest of that time?
Principal and superintendent, 25 years in Hanover.
Okay. I know you're a very well-respected educational leader in this area. Why? No, I want to ask you, why is he so respected?
George is one of the best read educators that I know. He really takes a lot of pride in his profession, and he reads a lot, so he understands the complexities of his job as a leader, and he's in a small setting where he's brought about some cutting-edge strategies to help kids do really well there at Hebron.
You know, every time I talk to you, Ed, you talk so positively about the educational leaders in Northwest Indiana. Why is that? Because, I mean, you've been back here for a while,
Sure.
but you kind of have a perspective from the outside coming back.
Well, they really have their priorities aligned to students, and they focus on making good decisions with their boards, which will benefit their students. And it's just a pleasure to work with so many of them, and they have this great skill of agility, and so they've had to make a lot of adjustments in the last 5 or 6 years, and they haven't really missed a beat because we're continuing to improve in all facets of what we do for kids up here on the Lakeshore.
So Ed is making some really nice compliments about you and some of your peers.
Yes.
But we are on the brink of a pretty significant change here. You and about 6 other superintendents are
Yes.
all retiring this year that are this group that Ed's so complimentary about. What's going to happen when we lose this big a brain trust in our leadership of our schools?
Well, fortunately, there are a number of people who are still interested in the position of being a superintendent of a school
Hard
district.
to believe, though?
Hard to believe. Well, you know, yesterday we had sort of a sending off ceremony after our study council meeting. And of course, a lot of us said to the ones that are staying, well, we wish you luck. But after that was said, one of the superintendents, Tony Lux, who retired last year, made the comment that no matter when you retire, there's always challenges for the people who are left behind. And the people who are going to still be superintendents and the ones coming along, they will face those challenges and they'll do a good job. And you know, like Ed said, we've all been able in the last 8 years, because a lot of these changes started about 8 years ago. And they'll make these changes, and they'll be able to be flexible, and they'll do the best they can, and they'll survive and do the best they can.
So this is a group of superintendents who meet the educational leaders
Once a month.
meet once a month. I've been always impressed with that you all meet and really work on things. So I'm still trying to figure out if this was a celebratory meeting or it was more like, you know, adios.
No,
you know, we're
we
hitting the road.
have, well, yesterday, but we always have speakers who come in and talk to us. We've had legislators come in. It's also a time for superintendents to vent a little bit. But we've always said to the 24 school corporations in Lake and Porter County that it's important for the superintendents to come to these meetings, because you always learn something that's going to help you when you go back to the office.
And Keith, it may not be that they're learning from the program, but they may lean over to someone else that's going through a situation that maybe needs some help and support on a situation they've been through themselves. So that relationship piece or those sidebar conversations are real interesting. I'm the secretary for this group, and it's always interesting. It's hard to get the meeting started.
So does that mean you write down some of those sidebar comments that are being
Yeah.
made?
Yes, I do. I'm really good at that. And
It'll be good publishing those maybe after they're all out.
And, you know, they help one another, which is, you know, that human interaction. I think educators like that. And you know, these new soups that are coming into these roles next year, we're going to mentor them. We're going to encourage them to come to study council. This study council is about 48 or 49 years old. Wow. So they've been studying topics for a long time and trying to move their schools forward from studying those topics, you know, and with professional development. This past year at Hobart, we brought in a gentleman that was really good with 21st century learning skills for the leadership teams, and, you know, those superintendents took that all back, and they tried to bring some of that practice into their schools.
Well, let's talk about some of the kind of the bigger issues, because I wanted to give that perspective of, I think, this cooperation, and I think the level of high ability we have among, I think, our educational leadership, despite the fact that there seems to be, I'll even describe it as an assault on public education, it feels like. 8 years ago or so, we've seen a real shift here, and I'll just try to recount from what I understand, then you guys add some color to it. We are trying to change the way we're doing education in this state pretty dramatically. In fact, sometimes described as we're trying to take a leadership role in the nation. And in many ways trying to privatize or offer options. But the result of these vouchers and this privatization, which some people would argue the privatization word, and the development of the charter schools, seems to be really having an adverse effect on some of our public schools. Is that a fairly good description of what's happening?
Well, the charter schools, of course, are public schools. The vouchers those go to private schools, and you know what has happened there is you're taking tax money from the taxpayers in the form of a voucher, and that is being spent and given to a private school.
So how are charter schools still called public schools? Why are they still called public schools?
Well, I just think that a shift in the law here in Indiana, you know, they are considered public schools, even though initially a charter school was kind of set around a theme in an area that maybe needed some real drastic change.
But I thought the definition of a public school was you got public money and you had to have pretty much open access or open enrollment to anybody who wanted to come. So is that
well,
the
there's
definition
still,
of the
the
charter
charter
schools?
school is getting the money, the state support money that the public school gets. The charter school gets that amount per student that the public school would have received.
Okay, and they have the open enrollment too? They have to take anybody who comes?
Well, there's a lot of discussion about that and how that's actually happening. And there's a lot of debate about that particular question. But
Yesterday we just talked about that,
Yeah.
and there was one of our superintendents said that there was a flyer that was being circulated a couple of years ago about a charter school that was welcoming students, but the requirement was a 2.0 as a grade point average requirement. In a public school, in a public school corporation here in Indiana, we accept all children. And
There's no GPA requirement.
There's no GPA requirement. There's no sorting of kids that come to any of our public schools.
So, it's interesting. If the charter schools are public, are any of them involved with the study council?
No, because it's a public school study council,
But they are public schools.
but they haven't been involved.
They have not been involved, yes. Now, they are involved in your study, in your
Yeah, they're
service
members.
center.
They're members of the service center, yes, but they haven't been involved in the study council. And a lot of times, Keith, their superintendent may be in Arizona or in Texas. That's kind of doing the supervision of a charter school that is in different locations here in Northwest Indiana.
So how is this change to these charter schools damaging the public schools? I mean, I hear this.
There's a great film that many people saw on the 30th of April here in Northwest Indiana called Rise Above the Mark. And in that film, the example is with vouchers and going to private schools or school choice and the expansion of charters, that fundamental money that was going to the foundation of our public schools, our foundation and our public schools are full of termites right now. And those termites are eating away at inflation, personnel costs, and just day-to-day operation costs of a public school. So,
But I would, from what I hear, it's the proponents of the charter schools and the vouchers and so forth would say is, well, that's giving free choice, so it's just dollars being diverted to another location, and those schools should be entitled to do that, and the public school or the traditional public school will just have to do without some of that money.
Well, yeah, that's
Sounds
what
like a
you're
great
saying.
theory.
But again, remember, the vouchers are going to the private schools
Okay.
and the parochial schools,
Okay,
not the charters.
okay. But the money flows.
The money
Go with
flows. At a charter school, if we receive $5,000 per student and we lose a student to a charter school, we've lost that $5,000.
Does the charter get that 5,000?
No, in a charter school,
What number do they
the
get?
charter is the amount of money that the private school or the parochial school gets for the charter. It's based on a formula, and the average voucher
I saw your finger.
is
in
now
it, so-
$4,900.
Okay.
And of course, that will vary depending on the parent's income. Now, one of the issues about vouchers was the fact that when this started out, it was supposed to be parent choice. But it really isn't, because what is happening is it's really becoming school choice. When you see the signs out on the highway for parochial schools and private schools, you'll see now that they'll say, "We accept vouchers," and it's an enticement to the parent to send their child to that school, because now a good part of that tuition is going to be paid by vouchers, by tax money, and that parochial school or private school now has the possibility of even raising higher its tuition, because they know they're going to get $5,000 in the form of a voucher. But the whole issue is, this is tax money, and did the founding fathers when set up the idea that tax money was supposed to go to help pay for religious education? Should public tax dollars go to a private school or to a Catholic school or a Lutheran school so that a parent can send their child there?
So what's
That's the question.
So what's interesting, that's probably one of the questions, right? Because it seems like there's a whole myriad of questions around here. So that's one of the questions in doing that, because I think we go back to many of us from my studies in school about we put our pool of tax money together to educate our general population, to educate every citizen of this country to be good citizens and to be able to function. What in this change of kind of a free market model, is that a good way to describe this, a free market model?
No, it's a competitive model,
Okay.
as I see it.
In this competitive model, what's wrong if the money is being handed out in that apportioned way?
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we're not afraid to be accountable. But when you take the last count that we have is $81 million now in voucher money has gone to private or parochial schools that has been taken away from public education. We feel that that's disrupting the playing field. That's money taken away from.
But isn't that the intention of the strategy, to disrupt the playing field, to force, I mean, this is what I hear. This will force the public schools now to be more competitive and more accountable. And so if they're good, they'll still continue to draw the students that they should.
Yeah, you know, but I think it was based on a choice, like maybe you went to a public school and that did not work out for you, and so you had a choice to go to a parochial, private, a religious-based school, and that's with the school choice scholarships. That's not what's happening. You know, of that 81 million, I think 31 million is going directly to the private, independent, or religious school. And, you know, it's that whole discussion of the fundamental beliefs of tax dollars being utilized to educate all kids. And, you know, in some cases, charters are sorting and only maybe taking the cream of the crop into their schools. Not in every case, but in some cases. And, you know, I just think it's important that people realize that our public schools are doing a really good job. And I don't agree with expanding schools in the middle of a recession or privatizing or bringing corporate management into the public school setting.
Well, where is this general public unhappiness with K through 12 education? Where does that come from? Where are the seeds or the roots at? Because it's been around a while. When did a good portion of the public, or the vocal portion of the public, lose their confidence in the schools? Because I don't think if the confidence was gone, this would be this easy to resurrect. Do you?
Right. I don't know if they've lost their confidence.
Okay.
I think legislatively, those legislators here in Indiana have kind of directed what was going to happen in this process. And, you know, I think it's just really important to stay involved and read in depth about what's going on with these state dollars. Because I think a lot of folks think that charter schools are not public schools, and these school choice scholarships, that's just eroding at the financial base that we need to operate our schools. And in my opinion, we should shore up our public schools. And, you know, I could give you 25 years of research here in Indiana that we are steadily showing great growth in all areas. Sure, there's isolated schools in our area and other parts of the state of Indiana that have struggled because the people have moved out of those areas because there aren't jobs, and you know, those challenges continue to exist. But I just think that we're headed in a good direction for our future. But I think more people need to understand the issues. A lot like the election of our State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Glenda Ritz.
So you see a need for the general public to be more knowledgeable and weigh in more on this. What do you see? We're down to the end, George. So what do you see needs to be done to try to figure out the balance of what to do here?
Well, first of all, when you look at Gallup polls, most people are very happy with their local schools. That's always been shown in Gallup polls. they are definitely happy with their local situation. I think what it's going to take is the school districts and the organizations involving professional educators. We have to continually get the point across to the public that some of the things that have been happening through the past 8 years, such recently now, some changes in the way teachers are certified. There have been several of them in the past couple of weeks now, that we need to get the public educated on that, because the standards for certification of teachers have been lowered in some of these bills. That we have to get that out to parents and help them understand that that's not going to make things better in the classroom.
Okay. You know, I always feel like we kind of just get this thing started and
Right.
get it rolling, and the audience is probably going, oh my gosh, can't we talk about this more? But I think the challenge we've got here, from what I hear from both of you, is that we've got a lot of confidence still in our schools. There's some things that are changing that maybe need to still be fixed. We all need to figure this out and work together. I appreciate the leadership you have, and I know that we're probably not going to really lose you, George, so hang around and help us figure this all out. So thanks for being here today, both of you.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
All right. Imagine that you are talking with a group of friends about a fairly controversial issue. One of the crowd expresses impassioned support for a certain position. Another eloquently proposes a different direction. One by one, each participant presents varying points of view. There's only one person who says little. When asked to share his thoughts, he slowly and cautiously presents a litany of comments that lead someone to say, "So you're on the fence about this?" Has he not made up his mind? Is he trying to think it through and weigh all the options? Does he see true merit in all sides of the argument? Sadly, for many in our society today, the answer is simple. He is unaware of what is going on. He has failed to pay attention. He has not read about the issue, talked to anyone, listened to broadcast media, or researched the internet. He has done nothing and now has little or no information. These people sit on the fence because they do not know which way to go. They are paralyzed by their lack of knowledge and may remain perched on the fence for a long, long time. When we have an issue like the one facing Indiana's communities regarding K-12 public education, we cannot afford to have people sitting on the fence. The decisions being made now will have a major impact, good or bad, on this state well into our future. It's all right to remain somewhat neutral for a while, but each of us must look to the left and right or to the north and south of our location. We must scan the horizons and explore the possibilities. Hopping down from the fence and looking around on one side or the other may help us understand more about the issues we face. Do we privatize our educational system, providing more vouchers, forcing change through market conditions? Or do we strengthen our long-standing commitment and make repairs to our public schools? We as a whole must determine which direction we need to go. Leaving these critical decisions to a small group of politicians is not a good approach. Our strategic direction should be determined by the reasonable and well-informed voices of many working closely with our highly trained educational leaders. It's time for us to get off that fence. As I recall, sitting on such a structure, whether it is splintered wood, picket, or barbed wire, is a rather uncomfortable place to be for an extended stay. Remaining there will create permanent damage in more ways than you can imagine. Thanks for watching Lakeshore Focus today. Tell your friends, family, and coworkers that you saw the show or watched it from our website. Yes, previous shows are on the website. That address is listed on your screen. Also, please email your comments and thoughts to focus@lakeshorepublicmedia.org. Join us next Friday evening at 7:30 for another Lakeshore Focus. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.